A man was just a janitor at MIT one day. While mopping the floor, he glanced at a problem written on a blackboard. He had no idea it was one of the world's most advanced and difficult equations, yet he solved it effortlessly. The equation was so complex that only a handful of people worldwide could crack it, some of whom were Nobel laureates. When the professor who posted the problem saw the correct solution, he immediately rushed over to ask about it. "This is great, we did this." None of the top students in the class had managed to solve it. That was when the professor realized MIT had just discovered a new genius, but no one could have guessed this genius was a quiet janitor. The professor had promised that anyone who solved the equation before the end of the semester, they would receive the highest academic honor with their name engraved in MIT's historical records. Yet just one day later, students from all over campus came to see who had solved it, but the mysterious genius never showed up. So the professor issued a new challenge. He and a colleague devised another problem, one that had taken them over 2 years to solve. They wrote the new equation on a hallway blackboard, hoping the janitor would see it during his nightly cleaning. When Will saw the new equation, he started solving it again. But this time the professor caught him in the act. At first he thought the janitor was just scribbling on the board. Furious, the professor stepped forward to stop him, but Will, spotting the professor, quickly ran away. The professor chased him around the corner. Will was already gone. But when he turned back to the blackboard, the professor stared at the answer on the board. He was stunned. Will had done it again. It was nothing short of a miracle, but Will's brilliance didn't stop there. He had a near photographic memory. No math problem was too difficult for him. He had barely attended school, yet his home was filled with books. After asking around, the professor finally tracked Will down, but by then, Will was already facing assault charges. He hadn't hired a lawyer. He didn't need one because his memory of legal statutes was so sharp that he defended himself in court, leaving the opposing attorney speechless. Clearly this wasn't Will's first time standing before a judge. The professor watched in awe, his amazement written all over his face. But this time things weren't so simple. Will was arrested, unable to pay the steep bail. That's when the professor stepped in. He wanted to help this young man to see what he was truly capable of. The judge agreed to release Will on bail, but with two conditions. First, he had to study advanced mathematics with the professor every week. Second, he had to attend therapy sessions. Will hated the idea of seeing a therapist, but compared to jail, he'd take the sessions. Soon, he began showing the professor his true talent. No matter how complex the equation, Will could solve it in minutes, sometimes even faster than the professor himself. The professor might have placed a hand on Will's shoulder, seeing the young man's future, but Will was stubborn. He refused to let anyone close to his heart or emotions. Every therapy session became a battle. He found loopholes in their methods, countering them with razor-sharp words. He pushed every therapist to their limit. 5 tried, and 5 failed. No one could break through his defenses, so the professor turned to his old classmate Sean. He didn't want to take the case, but the professor insisted Will was a once-in-a-century genius. If they gave up on him, the world would lose something truly special. Finally, Sean agreed.